Well, hey everyone, it's Nate. Welcome to this episode of The Vinyl Guide, the podcast where we celebrate records, music, and physical form media. And today's episode is an especially interesting one. We have not one, but two conversations. One with musician, artist, and hero to many, Mr. Steven Wilson. Now, Steven has been on the show before. It's always great to speak with him. He's always got a really interesting perspective to share. And this interview was set up to talk to Steven about his new LP, The Future Bites. However, Steven is on the interview circuit. After hearing him on other shows explaining the concepts of the album again and again, I thought I'd make this conversation a bit different. So I decided to focus on two specific areas. One, Steven's work in various remix projects. And today he goes quite into detail, sharing his thoughts on project selection, even alludes to a few future projects, which is quite interesting. And area number two, I thought we would talk about his extremely unique, even ingenious idea to have a single Ultra Deluxe box set of the Future Bites in which only one item was produced. It's a truly unique package, and it was sold for 10,000 British pounds, or roughly 14,000 US dollars, 18,000 Australian dollars, or about 1/4 of a single Bitcoin. And by the way, the money did not go to Steven. It went to a charity that looks after music venues and those unemployed by the pandemic. But the lucky winner of this Ultra Deluxe edition of one box set not only got the main box set, number 1 of 5,000 units pressed, but indeed a plethora of other Steven Wilson related materials, handwritten lyric sheets, test pressings, unheard tracks, Steven's Grammy certificates and medallions, backstage laminates, and more. And all of this went online in late November, and one lucky winner bought it. Now, I know I said one lucky winner got this Ultra Deluxe package, but in fact, I think we were all lucky in this case, because the winner was one Alan Lastufka, a very creative and energetic individual who has not just embraced the box set for himself, but has shared his experience online. Alan went beyond the normal unboxing video. He made one that was extremely high production. He's gone through it bit by bit, talked to fans. He's even released the music that was unique to the box set in high quality downloadable FLAC files for everyone to enjoy, which of course Steven gave him permission to do. Alan even went so far as to make a new video for the song that was included in the box set, The Tastemaker, and it's really, really good. The video extends on the universe that Steven made for the Future Bites, and the production quality and creativity is extraordinarily high. I'll put links to the videos inside this episode page. So today, we also speak with Alan, the purchaser of the box set, on the experience he had buying this very unique package, how his life has been over the last few weeks, and what comes next for this exceptional collection. And by the way, if you're new to the Vinyl Guide podcast and even found your way here through this episode, well, welcome. Thank you very much for entrusting us with your ears for a little while. If you enjoy what you hear today, there are other episodes you may be interested in as well, including episode 124, again with Steven Wilson. He came on the show at the time of the release of To the Bone, talked about vinyl and all things remix. Very interesting episode 124 of the Vinyl Guide. Andy Partridge of XTC was recently on the show, episode 255 of the Vinyl Guide. It's always wonderful to hear Andy and his stories and perspective. Guy Pratt of Pink Floyd and related projects was on episode 237 of the Vinyl Guide. Of course, Guy's telling all sorts of hilarious behind-the-scenes stories from his time recording and touring with Pink Floyd. If you're a Frank Zappa fan, well, this is your place. We've got a ton of Frank Zappa episodes. I can't even list them all now. We've had Dweezil on the show, Moon on the show, Ahmet, Joe Vaultmeister Travers, all on the show. Search the Vinyl Guide backlog for those episodes and more. Bev Bevan of ELO, Jacko M. Jackcheck of King Crimson, Steve Hackett of Genesis. Search the back catalog of the Vinyl Guide and enjoy the interviews. All right, let's kick into this week's show. First interview up is Mr. Steven Wilson, and then over to Alan Lastufka to hear his side of the story. Enjoy. This week on the Vinyl Guide, we have Mr. Steven Wilson again on the show. This is the second time around. Last time was episode 124, where we were talking about To the Bone. And of course, now he's got the new album, The Future Bites, which I'm going to assume most of the audience has at least heard, if not own, one of those glorious box sets that he put out. Steven, you seem to have an affinity towards physical media music. Lots of box sets that you're either putting out or contributing to. Where do you feel the box set format fits into an age of digital?
That's a very good question. I mean, I think realistically there is a window right now, and that window will close probably in about 10 to 20 years. And it is the people that buy deluxe edition box sets they're kind of mostly my age. They're the people that have bought these. I'm not talking about my record, a new record. I'm talking about the sort of deluxe edition, box set revamping of a classic album. They're the people that buy those box sets are probably people that have bought the records 3 or 4 times before. They bought the original vinyl when it came out. They bought the first CD edition. They bought the remastered CD with the bonus disc, whatever it was. And now they're going to buy the ultimate, the deluxe edition box set with the demos, the cleaned up board tape, the coffee table book, whatever it is. And this is where I come in, the 5.1 remix or the Dolby Atmos remix. And I've had a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun working on those projects. But I'm very aware, and I think the record companies and the management, all the people that kind of commissioned me to do these jobs, they're aware that this window is going to close eventually, and that there will come a generation that will not have nostalgia for the physical piece. I'm generalizing. Of course, there are young people getting into vinyl, and they will probably presumably continue to buy vinyl. But I think generally speaking, the demographic physical product is an older demographic. The younger generation have obviously grown up with streaming. That's the way they engage with music. That's normal to them. And that's already the prevalent way that people engage with music. And it will only continue to grow. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think there's a window right now when there's going to be, there's a lot of box sets coming out right now. I mean, a ridiculous amount of box sets. It seems like every week there's another 5 big box sets being announced. And I think that's because the record companies have realized that this is kind of a last chance saloon opportunity for them to sell physical products, and they are selling it to people that have bought these records before. And the other side of that, sorry, just one more thought on that, is unfortunately I think it does also reflect the fact that a lot of these people have failed to find anything really to replace these classic albums in their listening diet. So they haven't found anything new to replace the music they grew up with, which is kind of a little bit sad in a way. There's something a bit sad about that. People are very enthusiastic about a bunch of lo-fi David Bowie demo tapes rather than going out and buying a new record by somebody else. But I think it's because nothing has really come along to replace a lot of that music for those people.
Sure. And you touched on it right at the beginning, the nostalgia of it. The feeling that you get when you hear that song that you heard when you were 14, and it transports you to a time where you didn't have worries of a mortgage or, those sort of things. It's a taste of free. It's a time machine, essentially. I also imagine, and correct me if you think differently, but this is also an opportunity for a lot of bands to be able to make the final version that will cement the album's legacy into the future. For example, Court of the Crimson King, your mix or one of those mixes around there is going to be the one that carries it in the future. There's not going to be any more revisiting of those master tapes. This is the one that people will hear for generations to come.
I guess so. I mean, one of the things I do like about the modern world, modern pop world, and the whole streaming culture thing is this idea that the album can actually be in a state of flux. It can actually be something which can be adapted, added to, changed. I find that a really interesting idea. I mean, obviously we're both a bit older, so older generation of music listeners, and we both I'm sure we both relate to this idea of the album as almost like a sacred text, And it's interesting that notion is changing slightly. And part of that has changed, I think, because of this notion of remixing into surround, remixing into Dolby Atmos, which is something else I'm doing now, and, freshening up the sound of some of these records. And that kind of interests me, that this idea that an album isn't necessarily set in stone now. And it's definitely something the world of urban music has embraced a lot, different mixes, different versions of an album, which is something a little bit hard for me to get my head around, as someone who was always very much in love with the idea of the album as, this continuum, this musical journey that you would take the listener on. And it's just part of the evolution of music. It continues to evolve in that respect.
Yeah, and I guess there's the temptation of self-editing. For instance, an artist could potentially revisit their works and completely change them, perhaps based on new beliefs. Maybe they find God and decide they want to go back and change some of the lyrical content that they made in their youth.
Well, Prince
Something
did
like that.
Prince did that. Prince censored his own records. He went back and he took out all the swear words and reissued the albums. In fact, famously, that album Emancipation, he reissued it about a year after he released it with all the swear words taken out because he'd become a Jehovah's Witness in the interim, which is an interesting, concept. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, obviously my philosophy when I'm doing a lot of these revisitations of classic albums is to try and be in my own way, try to be as faithful as possible to the original vision. And I have to tell you that it's usually the artist that's pushing me to change stuff, not me. In fact, I've had some quite heated discussions with some of the artists I've worked for because they wanted to change stuff. And I was like, you really can't do that, because people have been, this music it's in a way, it's no longer theirs. It belongs to the fans now. They know the music better than the artist does. Because I'm in the same. I mean, I never want to hear my records again once I finish them. I'm sick of them. I don't want to hear. I'm sick of this bloody music. I've been demoing it, recording it, mixing it, mastering it, talking, touring it. By the time I finished all that, I never want to hear that music again. So the music becomes, at that point, it becomes owned by someone else. It belongs to someone else. It belongs to the people that fall in love with it. So the artist wanting to tamper with that is it's kind of a bit of a controversial area, really. And I've, as I say, I've had some quite heated discussions with some artists about, they wanted to change things or take stuff off or re-record things. And I'm like, no, you really shouldn't be doing that. You can't do that.
Now, you've worked on many remix projects, creating what I feel is going to be the ultimate version of the album. Which artists have you not worked with that you would want to get your hands on some of the albums to do remasters?
Wow. I mean, so many. I mean, the list is almost endless, because the thing is, any record that has what I would call a strong element of layering or sound design in the production lends itself so well to being mixed in, what I specialize in mainly is remixing in surround. The kind of creating new stereo mixes was always a byproduct of that, and it still is a byproduct of that. Although actually, strangely, recently I've started to get commissions to just mix in stereo, but generally speaking, that came as a byproduct of mixing in surround. So there's many, many albums, being someone that grew up in the 80s, the Kate Bush catalogue. I would love to get my hands on the Kate Bush catalogue. The aforementioned Prince, for me, the greatest pop musician the world has ever produced, most naturally gifted pop musician that the world of pop has ever produced, and he was the guy, as a poster I had on my wall when I was a kid. So that would be a dream gig for me. But almost, the list is endless. I mean, the more you start thinking about it, the more you realize that there are so many records that would lend themselves really well to being given a little bit, a fresh coat of paint or a surround sound mix. Yeah.
Do you make overages to different artists, like reaching out to David Gilmour and saying, "Hey, I'd like to have a shot at this. Wish you were here."
I've spoken to David about doing stuff, and the thing is that in the case of Floyd, they have their own team, James Guthrie and Andy Jackson, who they've been using for years and years. But Yeah, I've tried to talk him into letting me do so, and it could happen, but I don't do that as a rule. I've been very fortunate that I think 80% of the time it's the artist. Well, it's not the artist. It's usually the record company. It's usually the people that own the rights to the recording, which is sadly is very rarely the artists themselves. So it's the record company, and it's usually the record company thinking along the lines of it's a 50th, it's a 40th, it's a 30th anniversary. So right now there's a lot of albums that I'm being approached and asked to work on, or am working on, that are coming up for their 30th or 40th anniversary. So albums that were released in 81, in 91 or 81 or 71, 50th anniversary. So it's usually driven by that, anniversaries, and it usually comes from the record company.
We just saw the package for Black Sabbath Volume 4 come out, which I believe you were deeply involved in. Did you get a contact high just handling those master tapes?
Well, I don't handle them. I don't literally handle the master tapes. I get sent. So what happens is the master tapes get sent off to a digital transfer facility, because transferring analog master tapes is a very, very complicated and very delicate process. The master tape, in the case of that album, 50-year-old master tapes, multi-track master tapes, they're in pretty poor condition. No matter how well they've been stored, they'll be in pretty poor condition. So they are baked. Literally, they're put in an oven at a very low temperature to remove humidity and moisture, and then they're very carefully transferred to very high resolution digital files, which is what I get. I get digital files to work from. And so I don't literally handle the physical multi-track tapes, no.
They just send you just this huge barrage of files that come down from all the different tapes. It sounds like there's a lot of things that you're hearing for the first time in 50 plus years.
Yeah, I mean, I'm working on a project now, which unfortunately, I can't tell you about because it's not been officially announced, but it's an album that's reaching its 30th anniversary this year. And there are something like 100, I think it's more actually, 124, more than 124 track reels of tape. To go through. Because a lot of them are 72 track sessions. So in those days, 91, this is kind of just before digital recording became the norm. They're still recording on analog tape, but they have 3 24-track tape machines running together in synchronization. So they have what's called 2 slave reels. They have the master reel and they have 2 slave reels. So they have 72 tracks available to them. So I'm getting sessions that are like 72 tracks and with very little documentation. Nobody really anticipated ever that these multi-track tapes would ever have to be revisited or remixed. So I'm literally having to go through every track and say, okay, that sounds like a hi-hat channel, and the next one, that sounds like the bass guitar going through an amp, or that sounds like it could be a harmony vocal. And a lot of it is really detective work in trying to reconstruct and rebuild those original multi-track sessions. And I say that takes about 30-40% of the work, is just literally figuring out what's on the tapes to start with. I mean, Black Sabbath was easy. It was 16-track tape. It's pretty obvious what you've got there. But later on in the 80s and 90s, the sessions get more and more complex.
Yeah, that must be maddening, just sorting through false starts and trying to even separate what's good and what isn't.
Well, let's just say the novelty wears off. A lot of people have said to me, isn't it amazing, being able to eavesdrop on, on a King Crimson session from 1969 or a Tears for Fears session from 1985. And well, it is, but actually after you've, like you say, after you've listened to endless, false starts and rejected takes, the novelty does wear off a bit, I mean, listen, it's still an incredible privilege to be in that world, but it is work, and it is a hard work, and it is a real challenge too.
Absolutely. So let's quickly pivot over to this Ultra Deluxe limited edition of 1 copy of the new album. Now, you had this box set, limited edition of 1, 10,000 pounds. That must be the ultimate box set now. Are you having ideas of how you could potentially one up it in the future?
I mean, I don't think there is a way to one up it, is there? I mean, a limited edition of one is like you say, it's the ultimate.
I think you would have to come in the box.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's a question. It's not a question of being limited. It's a question of what you include in it. Yeah. I think what I was fascinated with was the idea. Well, two things really. I was fascinated with the sort of high concept, high designer culture. The idea that a lot of modern consumerism now, and by the way, this applies also to the world of music and the deluxe edition box set itself, is already kind of one of these items. It's about the idea of ownership. It's not about the idea of utility. What I mean by that is it's buying things that we don't need because we like to own them, or because we like other people to see that we own them. And the most extreme example of that is something like a company like Supreme, who take a 50-cent T-shirt, print their logo on it, and sell it for $300. So it's about the branding, it's about the elitism. So again, it's not about the utility, it's about the status of owning this item. And an even more extreme example would be the Virgil Abloh brick, the limited edition brick, which is literally a brick with a serial number on it, which sold for $300. And they sold instantly, and they became collector's items. That world fascinates me. It's ridiculous, it's absurd, but it's also a lot of fun, and I kind of like that. And I was interested in doing something which kind of riffed on that idea of elitism, and what could be more elite than a limited edition box set that came in an edition of one and had items in it that were completely unique. The unique 7-inch single, the unique handwritten lyrics, the unique Grammy certificate, etc., etc. And the other thing that was kind of feeding into that was this idea of music as the way music could be sold as analogous to the way that art is sold. So obviously the world of art has always been historically based on this idea that a painter or a sculptor creates one unique piece and sells it for a premium price. And the person who buys that item at that premium price can choose to put it in a gallery for other people to see, or they can just hang it over their fireplace in their front room and nobody else gets to see it. And I was fascinated with what would be the equivalent, in terms of making a music product that would be analogous with a painting like that or something. So again, it was kind of riffing on that idea of high concept, high designer, high art world, but it was also for a very good cause, and the money went to a very, very good cause.
No, absolutely. I should clarify for any listeners who aren't familiar with it. It was 10,000 British pounds. Was that about 13,000 US dollars that went to the Music Trust Foundation for
Music Venue Trust?
Music Venue Trust, a group that's been unfortunately extremely hard hit by the COVID lockdowns and travel bans and everything. Now, this package of one, it seemed to go to the perfect guy. I mean, it could have gone to a banker, some hedge fund guy. It could have disappeared into some collection, never to be seen again. But it seems like it went to the right guy, who's actually been very benevolent. He's been sharing it online. He's been telling the story. He even made a video.
Yeah.
Did you have a hand in that, in where it went?
No, nothing at all. No. When it went on sale, we immediately had a number of inquiries, but it really was first come, first served. The moment it went on sale that day, it was whoever could get in quicker. So I had no influence and no sway in who would have bought it. But I think what's worth kind of pointing out here is I'm not a kind of mainstream pop artist. Most of the people that would have been aware of this deluxe edition and would have been interested in it, I think would have been my real fans. And I kind of knew that would be the case. I mean, I'm not a massive mainstream pop star. That it would have been a big, a great investment, as you say, for somebody who works on Wall Street or something. So I kind of always knew that it was going to go to somebody that was really a fan and really a collector. But actually, I have to say, even I'm pleasantly surprised by how much he has been so, kind of like visible with it, in terms of posting unboxing videos and posting the exclusive song, and as you say, making a video for it. I mean, that's incredible. I couldn't have hoped for better. So it's been really gratifying to see it to go to somebody that really, really seems to not only appreciate it, but wants to kind of share it as much as feasible anyway with other people.
Yeah. I'll put the links to the video and some of that information. The guy's name is Alan Lastufka, and I'll put that in this episode page. The box set came with a lot of one-off items, like you said, Grammy certificates, handwritten lyrics, I guess your personal past laminates. That single, though, it came with a 7-inch single of a song that had never been heard outside of your studio and was never to be released, only for that one individual. That single, was that an acetate? Or did you actually have a vinyl master and plates made up that were then destroyed?
Yes, the latter. Acetates are not the best. They're not the most durable records. I wanted this to be something that would be, I mean, it does. I mean, listen, it doesn't. It's a white label 7-inch. It's what they call a test pressing, essentially. Right. So it doesn't have artwork with it, but it is a properly pressed. It's one-sided. It's a properly pressed one-sided white label 7-inch single. Yeah.
Okay. You're talking to an audience of record nerds here, so we like to hear about that. So the plates are destroyed after it made one unit.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was very important to me. Yeah, that would be the case.
I know you can't talk about other upcoming projects, remixes and the like, but I would imagine within COVID times, everyone's lives had to shift around a bit. Did you get more remix work? Is that where you tended to shift your time while you were stuck at home?
No, I've done rather a lot of things over the last year. I've already got another album almost finished. Firstly, not a solo record this time. It's going to be a project. I can't say too much about it at the moment, but it's a kind of project stroke collaboration record, which I'm excited about. I started working on a book, which is something, honestly, I would never have got around to doing. It's something I'd always talked about doing. And people had asked me about doing something along those lines. And I probably would never have got around to it if it hadn't been for lockdown. But suddenly I had this sort of time stretching out in front of me to be able to do things that I'd been talking about doing for years and hadn't. And that was the one that I put most sort of my effort into. So I've been working on this book. It's a book about my ideas about music, about my relationship with the music industry, about my relationship with my fans, about what I call the art of listening. This idea that I've never really acknowledged this concept of genre. I've never understood that idea of musical snobbery. So I talk a lot about how I discovered music as a kid and that I was always listening beyond genre. And that kind of informed a lot of what I ended up doing as a professional musician myself, and still does, So there's all that. There's even some short stories in the book. There's a bit of everything going on. And that's almost finished now. So I'm excited about that, getting involved in a different kind of, albeit still in the world of, still relating to music, but a very different creative discipline. I started a podcast with a friend of mine too, where we just talk about music. So I've done a lot of those kind of things. I have had some more remix work come in. I've been very selective. I've been more selective over the last couple of years, I think, than I was at the beginning. But I've taken on a couple of things that were very exciting and very different. Unfortunately, I can't tell you what they are because they haven't been officially announced yet. But the Sabbath is part of that, actually, because I don't think that was something obviously quite different to what I'd done before. Mainly before I'd done the sort of big 80s pop records like the Tears for Fears and the Ultravox, and the more kind of conceptual rock of the 70s. So that's kind of a step into something different. And there's more stuff in that vein, which I've been doing recently, which is to come. There's more Sabbath stuff to come as well. So, yeah.
I hope Born Again is on that list because that sorely needs a remix.
Well, I can't say anything, unfortunately, about it, except I've already said too much. they'll probably slap me over the wrist for even saying that. But anyway, so that's that's a pretty busy year I've had, all told, and it's continuing to be very busy for me, I have to say.
Is there an album out there that you would just salivate to get your hands on?
Oh, so many. I mean, it's an endless list. I've always said that any record that has a degree of layering in the production or sound design element to it would particularly lend itself great to surround mixing, which is kind of where I came into this world. Although you
got to have one white whale out there, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably the classic Prince catalog is a dream for me. Albums like Parade, Purple Rain, Sign of the Times, either Prince or Kate Bush, I think, would be. Yeah, they would be my dream. They would be my dream gigs, I think. Yeah, Kate Bush and Prince.
All right. Well, look, I know it's late in the UK. Thank you very much for joining us here. I hope you and your family and friends are happy and healthy out there and being safe. I want to remind everyone that Stephen's new album, The Future Bites, is out there, available. The box sets are getting very difficult to get, so if you get an opportunity, grab one. You could always go over to burningshed.com and load up your cart, not only with Stephen's work, but so many others. Lots of remasters of XTC
remixes.
And King Crimson. Oh, sorry, remixes.
Yeah. It's a vinyl show. We've got to get the vernacular right, okay? Yeah.
All right. Lots of great remixes of XTC, of King Crimson. A recent remix of Sowing the Seeds of Love, Tears for Fears, is out there. Sounds incredible. So, again, go to burningshed.com. And, Stephen, thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to your further adventures.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Nate. Have a great day, buddy.
All right.
Bye
You too.
now.
Cheers.
We'll be back after these messages.
Hey there, really quick, I gotta tell you all about AudiophileuSA.com, the online used record shop that only sells excellent and near mint vinyl records. I was up on AudiophileuSA.com today. There's a ton of prog records up there that are in beautiful shape, waiting to be shipped directly to your house. Multiple copies of the Mobile Fidelity issue of King Crimson's In the Court of the Crimson King, heaps of Yes, XTC, Genesis, Vandergraaf Generator, Dream Theater, all sorts of prog and rock albums at AudiophileuSA.com. They're in beautiful shape, they ship worldwide, they've got over 42,000 titles in stock. Head up there now. It's a family-owned and operated business, and it feels good to support them. AudiophileuSA.com. Go up there now and find your holy grail. Anyone who has a vinyl collection needs to have a record cleaner. Why not get the best? Get the Groove Washer. The Groove Washer is the best record cleaner I've ever used. I use it multiple times a day, and it keeps my records looking and sounding their very best. Groove Washer's G2 fluid was made especially to clean vinyl records. It gets in the grooves deep and pulls out the dust and dirt and debris that gets in between you and your listening enjoyment. Don't trust any of those no-name backyard record cleaning brands. You have no idea what's in that fluid or what it does to your records long term. Get the Groove Washer, ask for it by name at your local record shop, or head up to groovewasher.com and enter promo code VinylGuide10. You'll get 10% off everything at groovewasher.com. That's groovewasher.com, promo code VinylGuide10.
Now we return to the program, already in progress.
Mr. Allen, how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Oh, you are clear as a bell. We have
Awesome.
a very good connection. Thank you for making the time. So it's pretty clear to say that you're a Steven Wilson fan.
I am, yes.
So first off, when did you hear about this 10,000 British pound box set?
I heard when it was announced that it was going to be coming, which I think was 2 months before it was actually went on sale. I think it was in September of 2020 was when it was announced.
Did you immediately think, I'm going to buy that? Or did it take a while for you to come to the idea that this could happen?
I immediately thought I want that. The biggest worry in my head was that somebody else was going to get it first. I assumed there would be a good demand for this. Yeah, pretty early on, I was like, I want this. I'm going to try for this. And if I get it, great, fantastic. And if I don't, there's only one available. I can't do anything about that.
But you immediately set your mind and likely finances in motion to make room for this purchase.
Correct. Yeah. No. It's weird because there's no precedent for something like this. I think 2 or 3 bands have done something similar in the past, releasing an Ultra Deluxe of one copy of their album, and those have usually gone to auction, I believe, or were just crazy sky high prices. I think the Wu-Tang album was $1 million, if I'm remembering correctly. Don't quote me on that. But this was obtainable. 10,000 pounds is a lot. It is by far the most I have ever spent on a music purchase, by about 10 times. But it was obtainable, and especially for the amount of content that was being offered here. It's not just, an exclusive song, or it's not just, fancy packaging. It was a number of pieces of music memorabilia personally coming from Steven Wilson, and that's just not an opportunity that arises with most artists very often.
Mm-hmm. This sort of money, we're talking 14,000 US dollars, something like that. First off, did you have to pay for shipping, or was that included?
I think shipping was free. I don't remember there being an extra charge for that. And thankfully also import duties. There were no import taxes, which a lot of people in the comments of articles about the box set had talked about. Oh, it's going overseas. They're going to have to pay a fortune to import it. But there was no extra charges on any of that stuff. So that was good. But yeah, I think with the conversion rate, it came to about 13,400, right around there.
Oh, okay. All right. So the exchange rate has changed significantly. Today I just checked, it was close to 14,000. So
well, then I got lucky.
Good investment.
Yeah.
So are you the type of guy where $13,000 or $14,000 is a lot of money?
It is a lot of money. Yeah. This was not like a every week purchase. This was once every 3-4 years type of purchase for me. I know some people have asked, how I was able to afford the box. I mean, this might have been before they knew my age or anything else. But I'm relatively younger guy. I know a lot of vinyl collectors are typically people in, 60s and 70s who kind of grew up with vinyl, and that was their main thing. And they also have well-paying jobs because they're into their career by a couple of decades and can afford these expensive purchases. I'm 37, and I was able to afford it because I started an indie record label back in 2008 with this focus on signing YouTube musicians. Basically, all my friends were uploading these original songs from their bedrooms, and the viewers were just asking, where can we buy this? Where can we buy this? The answer back then was nowhere. No one had heard of Bandcamp. No one had heard of DistroKid. It wasn't easy to get your music out there for sale. So I started a record label to help them do that, and we produced their CDs and their vinyl and t-shirts and helped with their tours and all this fun stuff. Well, that took off. What started in my literal bedroom, I had boxes of CDs at the foot of my bed when we started, ended up becoming a company that made, $3 million a year doing music sales. And I eventually ended up selling that company to a small group of investors and was able to retire at that point. And that is how I was able to afford such an expensive box set at my age. I don't work in IT. I don't have some amazing 6-figure job, nothing like that. But thankfully, I was part of this project that really struck a chord with people. It filled a need, demand that a lot of people wanted, and really took off.
In doing a little bit of research, you've written several books on YouTube, and I guess digital marketing is probably a fair characterization of it. And you're quite familiar with the concept of tailoring something for a viral life online. Is that fair?
Yeah, the only reason the record label ended up becoming successful was that my business partner Hank and I both had very popular channels at the time. We were both in the top 100 most subscribed on YouTube. Now, this was back in 2007, 2008, where it was kind of easier to get on that list than it is today. You didn't need millions of subscribers. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we knew how to market our videos. We knew how to bring attention to these kinds of projects. And so at that point, I was offered a book deal to write for O'Reilly Media, which they do educational books and technology books. And so I did that and try to help people start their YouTube channels. Again, all this information is, 12, 13 years out of date, so I don't suggest anyone go buy that book. But at the time, it helped launch a couple of new channels and, was useful in getting people started in what at the time was a fairly new medium. There weren't a lot of people just creating shows like this at home and finding success with them very easily. It was kind of your more established names were doing it, but it had yet to become kind of that bedroom revolution that it became.
So when you heard about this Steven Wilson box set, were you thinking about, okay, how could I not only obtain it because you're a fan, but also could it be a project that you then help take and extend in some way online?
At the time, no. When I first purchased it, I was like, okay, I'll get a really great unboxing video out of this. And that was my only thought as far as the online side of it went. You know, mostly I was excited about the handwritten lyrics. I was excited about the original hand-drawn drawing. The exclusive song was the most important thing. I was like, I cannot trust anyone else to release this to the fan base. I can't trust anyone else to release it properly and give us a high-res FLAC file that's been cleaned up properly. You know, these were my concerns at first. It wasn't until I got the box set and heard the song for the first time that I started thinking like, oh, well, I could just upload a video of the 7-inch spinning around or a still frame of the cover art or something. I was like, but wouldn't it be more interesting? Because at that point, Steven Wilson had built this whole universe around the Future Bites. You know, you've had a number of music videos at that point, a number of articles that had come out. All the single album covers had these fake products on there that was kind of building on the mythos of this company. And so at that point, when I heard the Tastemaker's story through the song, I was like, oh, well, this is a great character that adds to this world he's already created. Let's see if we can maybe continue that or add to it a little bit ourselves, you know, and so I was excited to do something that wasn't just a still frame video, and I was able to kind of, and at first I was a little worried about pissing him off, you know, because I know how much he loves to control the story of what's going on, you know, and so I was like, well, is he gonna maybe be a little mad that I'm kind of like, you know, writing fan fiction for his Future Bites story, you know. Thankfully, that doesn't seem to be the case. So I'm happy it worked out that way. But yeah.
But wow, I mean, the video is incredible, and I'll put the link to the video and your YouTube channel in this episode page for anyone who wants to check it out and hasn't already. How much time did it take to go from listening to that 7-inch to conceptualizing to the fully formed video?
So from listening to the first time before we started making real plans to make the video, I would say it was probably 2 or 3 days. You know, because at first it was, I want to hear the new album. Mm-hmm. I want to hear all the bonus material. You know, so it took a little bit to kind of go through the box set, unbox it all, listen to everything, kind of get an idea of what was going on. And then in the back of my head, I was just like, you know, well, we could do this with the video, and I could do that with the video. And so then I started making real plans. At that point, I had to purchase a matching suit for myself and my partner, Kristen, because we wanted to recreate the cover art that Steven had done, which is, it's a photo of him overlaid on top of a photo of another model. So there were 2 people that were needed for the album cover. So we did that and bought suits that matched his. Those took, 2 days to be delivered, so it took a little bit of time off there before we could even get started on the video. But at that point, I started designing all the fake products, and I was like, oh, we could have the Tastemaker approving and rejecting products. You know, that sounds like fun. That sounds like a job the Tastemaker would have, just kind of determining where the Future Bites goes. And so started working on those. Started building the website for that because I needed a fake working website that the Tastemaker could click around in the video. Started to get together the fake news clips of what happens when the Tastemaker makes a decision. You know, it becomes worldwide news every time they click on accept or reject. Lots of fun stuff. And in total, the video took about 10 days to create from nothing to having the video uploaded. Was about a 10-day period.
Again, extremely well done.
Thank you.
The reception has been quite tremendous. You even heard from Steven himself after the video, or did you hear from him after you got the box but before the video?
It was the day after the Tastemaker video went up. Yeah. Hadn't heard anything before that. I know some people had speculated that, because Steven had mentioned in an early interview that he knew a few fans who he thought might try to get the box set right away. So some people speculated that maybe he was talking about me and that we had known each other previously. Not the case. Never spoken to him, never interacted with him in any way. One person even on Reddit thought that this whole thing was planned from the beginning and that Steven and I had this video planned out months ago and all this kind of fun stuff. I was like, no, none of that. So the day after the video went up was the first time I'd ever heard from him. Email popped up in my inbox, a very nice message. You know, he talked a bit about the Ultra Deluxe box and how important it was to him that it be as high quality as any other box that he produced, even though there was only one of them being made. You know, and I don't know if your listeners have done any kind of like manufacturing or anything, but usually when you manufacture something, you have to manufacture 1,000 or more of them. You don't just make one of them, you know? So going through that, you know, it must have cost a great deal, and it must have taken some time to produce a box set that was as high quality as a one-off as any of the other ones. But, he said that was important to him. So he was really pleased when he saw my unboxing video and heard how happy I was with the box set. Because I think it was a little bit of a concern for him selling a 10,000 pound product and, trying to make sure that the product lived up to that. I mean, a lot of that money, it went to charity, so it wasn't a thing that like Steven was just pocketing it, but that doesn't change the fact that somebody bought a 10,000 pound box set and, you want to make sure that it lives up to the price tag.
Sure. He also mentioned that the record was actually plated. Plates were made for the 45. They stamped out one test pressing and then destroyed the plates.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I noticed immediately when I opened that it was an actual pressed record and wasn't like, just a lathe cut one time or something. As soon as I dropped the needle, I was able to hear that it wasn't a lathe cut. So I'm really happy they went through the trouble to do that, because it would have been so much easier for them to just do a little lathe cut of it and just be done, but the quality would have suffered, so yeah, really happy he went through that process.
Now, the day it went on sale, walk me through how that went.
It was a pretty crazy night. So it went on sale Black Friday, 9 a.m. in the UK, which is 1 a.m. in the morning on Thanksgiving night here in the US. So I was up very late on Thanksgiving Day, refreshed the page a second after it was supposed to go live at 1 a.m., added it to my cart, tried to click through to checkout, got an error message, refreshed, and it said out of stock. So I was like, oh man, someone else already got it. That's what I was expecting. It's disappointing, but, I kind of figured that's what was going to happen. So, I was bummed out and was talking with a few people on Twitter who had stayed up to see the box set go live. And I just kept refreshing the store page because I was like, I think it was a little bit of just disbelief. I was like, I can't believe this sold out already and I couldn't get it. So then after about 35 minutes or so, it came back in stock. And I was able to add it to the cart. I was able to check out. Everything went smoothly. I got a confirmation email. So I celebrated on Twitter with a couple of people. Paul from superdeluxeedition.com was even up at that point. He was like, wait, are you serious? Did you really get this box set? Or are you just joking? I was like, no, I think I got it. I got the confirmation email. Hopefully they didn't sell two of them accidentally. So I think that the first part, I think maybe somebody checked out and their card got declined potentially because it's a very large purchase and internationally and at a weird time. Or maybe it was somebody who was just joking around and checked out and just never paid for it. I'm not sure what happened in that first half hour, but happy I got it after that. And then trying to go to bed after that excitement and that purchase, and now it's 1:30 in the morning. You're like, okay, now it's time to sleep. It was quite exciting. And then, then the actual release was still over 2 months away at that point. So it's kind of like twiddling thumbs, waiting for it to come after you had pre-ordered. But yeah.
Did you get a phone call from your credit card company at all about the purchase?
I actually called them on Wednesday because I knew they'd be closed on Thursday and Friday for the Thanksgiving holiday. And I called them on Wednesday. And I was like, look, I'm going to be purchasing something very large, or at least attempting to purchase something very large at 1 a.m. on Thursday night. Please let this charge go through. They said they put a note on the account and everything seemed to go through fine. I didn't get any, alerts or any problems with it. So yeah, they were good about honoring their word on that, because I was a little afraid that, they would just cancel it outright of like, oh, nobody's up at 1 a.m. making $13,000 purchases. That just isn't a thing. So yeah.
Now, have you heard from any other people who were seriously attempting to purchase it at the same time?
No. If there was a person who bought it and got their card declined, I have not heard from that person. No one has as seriously said they tried going for it. One person offered me $2 for it on Reddit, but I think that was a joke offer. But yeah, no, I haven't had anyone seriously say that they had gone for it or tried for it.
Okay, so you had about 2 months between the time when you purchased it and when it finally arrived. What was your thinking during that time about what to do with this package?
Mostly I was concerned about, is it going to arrive safely? Because that's a very heavy set. It's coming from overseas. We have
it's not entirely reliable shipping these days. Right?
Yeah, with all the issues that are going on with international shipping, I was a little concerned about that. Also, I was concerned about how long it might take to get here. I as the date got closer and closer and I didn't get a shipment confirmation beforehand, I was like, oh man, the album's going to come out. I paid the most for the album and I'm not going to even be able to listen to it. I have to wait around for weeks and weeks and weeks. So, but eventually they did ship it, and only about 2 days before the album came out, but they shipped it with international FedEx priority or something like that. And I got it within like 36 hours of it shipping. So very quick getting here, which I was shocked by. And then it was just like, okay, before I do anything, break out the camera. We got to do the unboxing. We got to get the initial reactions. I can't go through all this stuff first. And so shot everything. And what you see on YouTube is me seeing it for the first time. Everything except the very first 2 items. I was so nervous about accidentally tearing something. I was so excited about getting the box set. My hands were shaking a little bit for the first 2 items. So I refilmed the first 2 items because it was just a little too shaky. But everything else after that is my first reaction of everything. And it was exciting. And I immediately, after the unboxing video, started ripping everything to start listening to it. I do all my listening through JRiver. I have a media server in the house. And so most of the time when I get a new album, it's okay, immediately into the disk drive to get ripped and then start listening to it. So, yeah.
Well, what impressed you most about the package?
Immediately when I opened it, that every item in there got its own little box and labels, the same way that you would see in any other box set. They had the tiny little ribbons for each little individual item. Wasn't expecting any of that. I assumed the items would just be kind of tossed in the box gently. But I didn't think that they would take the time to make all of those cardboard inlays and all of that for the individual items. It's a small thing, kind of, sort of, but it's something that would have cost them a lot of extra time and money to do because they're only making one of them, and it protects all the things. I didn't have to worry about the medallion, this big heavy chunk of metal, the Grammy medallion. I didn't have to worry about it denting, any of the paper inserts or anything like that because it had its own box to protect it. I thought that was a really nice touch.
What's the item in the box that means the most to you?
At the moment, I'd have to say the Tastemaker, just because it has been so much fun to work with the song, to share it with the Steven Wilson fandom. From the day the box arrived, everyone was like, when is the song coming? We can't wait to hear the song. Everyone was so excited about it. So that excitement, you feed off that, and it's exciting to you as well. So that means a lot. I also know that a lot of Steven Wilson fans are huge collectors of his vinyl limited editions. I know he does different colored pressings and different limited pressings and things like that. So this is obviously going to be a bit of a holy grail to the fandom. So I would have to answer that way. But I think before the box arrived, I was most excited about the handwritten lyrics. Like seeing the... I'm a musician myself, mostly a lyricist, and so seeing the songs evolve and what words were changed and maybe trying to guess as to why they were changed, that's very exciting to me as a songwriter. So those are the things that I was most excited about. I plan on scanning them in so that I can reference them often without having to handle them too often. I don't want to tear anything. I don't want to get greasy fingers all over them multiple times. So I plan on scanning those in and having just really nice high quality PDFs that I can reference regularly, and then the originals can be stored safely.
Now you have the box set. You've done the unboxing, the videos. You've done quite a great job of documenting it. What are you now going to do with the set? What comes next?
It will probably live with the rest of my physical media collection. I might get some kind of shadow box built to display it, just to kind of keep it free of dust and free of any fingerprints from people who are curious and looking at my collection of things and want to reach out and touch. It'll probably forever stand as the most expensive piece in that collection. I can't see that changing anytime soon, but yeah, it's just going to be added with the rest of the music that I have and enjoy.
Like a Prospex box with like a pin light above it, something like a museum display in your house.
If I can find somebody who will build it, that would be a wonderful display for it. Yeah.
Now, you've made a video for the Tastemaker. There's also a cover song in there from a sound check. I don't know if that's been revealed yet. Will that be revealed at some point?
I've revealed what the song is. I made a page for the box set on Discogs and put up all of the contents on there. Mm-hmm. So the soundcheck song is Rush's Twilight Zone, the cover that they played. And that Steven has not given me permission to release. So that is something I'm not going to release. I don't know if he'd be fine with it or not. I don't know if he can be fine with it since it's a cover song. I don't know if there's licensing issues and things like that about it getting out there. But I also think that something should be kept in the box to kind of, keep maybe a little bit of the value in there. I think I know a lot of the value is in the Tastemaker song being exclusive. A lot of the value is in the actual personal memorabilia things. But when the time comes to sell it in the future, it'd be nice to have something that is still exclusive to the box, I think.
Okay, interesting. So you're thinking at some point it will leave your hands.
Well, my partner and I, Kristen and I, we're not interested in having kids, so I won't really have anyone to leave the music collection to. So I will enjoy it for as long as I possibly can.
What about me? Come on.
So I'll enjoy it for as long as I can. But yeah, at some point, all of the music collectibles I have will be sold off to fans who will appreciate them, and the fans are really where it's at. I think, I could donate stuff to museums or showcases or things like that put these things on display, but I think they would be much more loved in a fan's home where they can, spin the record and flip through the books and just enjoy the ownership of those items.
I'm sure you've heard this online many times, and even it came up in Stephen and I's conversation that you're the perfect guy to have gotten this, because it could have disappeared into the collection of some hedge fund manager or some .com dickhead or whatever, never to be seen again. And here we have someone who's not only an Uber fan, I think that's fair, but also someone who has the talent and the skills to be able to take it and to extend on the concepts. And even in some way, with the concept of the album, you've been able to exemplify and even embody a lot of the messaging that he's had. So well done, Al. I mean, again, I'm not sure how anyone will be able to top this in the future, but it's been a really interesting ride watching this whole thing happen.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm glad that that's the way people feel. I want to share it in the way that I would want it to be shared if I wasn't the person who got it. If it had gone to somebody else, Bob or whoever, I would hope that Bob would release the song and do it in a quality way and, share as much of the box set with the fans as possible, because I was just as eager to see what was in there as everybody else,
Now, I just noticed on Discogs, there's 6 people on there that claim they have the package. Are you aware of this irony?
I am, yeah. I think that people are maybe confusing it with the regular deluxe edition if they just do a real quick search. That or people, maybe just want to be like, I have this really expensive box. It's funny. And I don't think there's anything that can be done about it, and that's fine. I don't think it's a big deal.
I think that would be hilarious if just like hundreds and hundreds of people just claim they have it. And there's nothing to stop them.
It would certainly confuse people in the future when they're like, wait, were hundreds of these made? It says of one on the cover,
So this is obviously, you said, the most expensive music collectible item that you've purchased. What's number 2? What's on that list below number 1?
Number 2 is a very rare demo tape released by Tegan and Sarah back when they were going by Sarah and Tegan. It was the demo tape they circulated before getting signed to a major label, which they both signed. So it includes a number of demos on there. They all sound fantastic. Some of those songs were re-recorded for their first album. Some of them weren't. But yeah, that's worth about $1,000. And that's probably the next item down. So you go from, $13,000 to $1,000. Yeah, and before this, that was my most expensive music-related purchase.
Okay. Do you have much of a vinyl collection? Are you a vinyl collector, or do you tend to stay in the digital world?
I do have some. My hierarchy is usually I want high-res digital if available. So I take Blu-ray audio and rip that. I take Super Audio CDs and rip that. HD tracks if there's no physical release, that kind of stuff. Then I will go for the best mastered CD. So usually that's going to be either MoFi or an old Japan pressing from the 80s. And then I will go to vinyl if there's just no good CD quality version or no good high-res version. With vinyl, I usually end up digitizing it, always doing the needle drop. I end up cleaning it up by hand always, because you can't just run the plugin across the whole thing. It'll just take out too much of the transients in the drums and attack on the guitars and stuff. So it's a very long process, which is why I don't normally focus on that format. But I can't handle the pops and ticks, man. I know you can clean records, and I do the best that I can. But yeah, not having, and also I I'm a bit obsessive about organizing of my collection, so I really love all the metadata that digital allows for. You know, if when you have a very large music collection, it's hard sometimes to remember like who played on which track or which record label released which albums, you know, that kind of stuff. And so I keep all of that data. I added all myself to my digital collection. And that way, if I want to search like, oh, you know, the drummer on this album, what other albums have they played on? I can punch that drummer's name into the search bar and I can get every album that drummer's ever played on. That's something I can't do with a vinyl collection because my brain just can't store all that information. So I do appreciate that a lot of stuff only exists on vinyl. You know, just yesterday I was needle dropping Toni Basil's albums from the 80s because she's never had CD releases of her albums, you know, so there's songs on there that you cannot find digitally anywhere. It's not on Spotify, it's not on CD, it's not anywhere except on those vinyls. So I go and buy a sealed first pressing from the 80s and needle drop that. It's as close as I'm going to get to, you know, the perfect sound forever. And it's fun. You know, sometimes you can feel a little bit like a librarian. It's just like, oh, I have this hole in my collection. How do I fill it? And then you go on the search for the perfect way to fill it. Yeah.
So, Alan, thank you so much for joining us here and telling us that other angle of the story of purchasing that Steven Wilson Ultra Deluxe, correct me if I'm wrong, Ultra Deluxe music product on obsolete media, limited edition box set 1 of 1. It was quite an investment, but again, very glad it ended up in your hands. And best of luck to you in the future. And I'm now subscribed to your channel, so I look forward to enjoying your continued adventures.
Thanks so much.
All right, there we go, people. Mr. Steven Wilson and Alan Lastufka talking all about that amazing Ultra Deluxe box set edition of 1 of Steven Wilson's The Future Bites. I think Alan is my new hero now. Man, so impressive. All that work he put into it. You guys got to check it out. If you haven't already, give him a Google. I put some links in this episode page. Show him some likes on his YouTubes up there. The videos are amazing. And again, if you don't have a copy of Steven Wilson, The Future Bites, head over to burningshed.com. Of course, the album is streaming. You can check it out on your phone. Try before you buy, and then try to find one of those box sets, those 5,000. You won't find the one box set, but find the one of the 5,000 and enjoy. There's a lot of really cool stuff in there. All right, that is it for this week's episode of The Vinyl Guide. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Please share these episodes on your social media, people. That's a huge help. It furthers the reach of the show, helps bring in new listeners. Leave us a positive review on iTunes if you can, or whatever system you use to get your podcasts. And even consider becoming a patron of ours. Patreon.com/Vinyl Guide. We give all sorts of extras, extended interviews, early access, secret episodes, and more. Patreon.com/Vinyl Guide. And we'll be back shortly with a brand new episode. So until we talk next time, keep spinning. Cheers.